Cooler than Jesus!
Hey everybody, we're going to start with one microphone and then we've got two. Awesome.
I don't think this one's hello.
We're already almost out
Great,
of time.
right?
Hey everybody, I'm Andy. I started working at Wax Trax in 1987 and pretty excited to be with these four wonderful people here tonight. I'll introduce them real fast. From my life at the Thrill Kill called Frankie Nardiello. The director of Industrial Accident, Julia Nash. The legendary Jello Biafra.
How is that rhyme for mayor? What happened?
And a man who I believe is in more Wax Trax entities, bands than anybody else, Paul Barker. So let's go a little bit chronologically. Julia, you obviously knew Jim and Danny first. So I love in this movie that we're really watching it unfold in real time. We see you at Retrospectacle, where I know you're getting the idea to make this movie. And we see you in the barn in Arkansas, where you're finding all the material that's become the movie. What was surprising to you that you found in Arkansas? Was there anything you were expecting to find, and particularly excited, or anything you'd forgotten about that you were excited to find?
I had no idea what I was going to find there. All I was looking for were my dad's ashes, because Danny had those, and so after he had passed away, that's really what I was going there for. And then we discovered that barn full of everything, and a ton of chicken shit and cats. You know, the most surprising thing, not to, dampen the mood,
but keep it light.
Was to walk into the house he was living in, his mom's house, and he had set up the kitchen and the living room exactly the way it was at my dad's, at their place. So walking in there was the biggest surprise. Sure, uncovering shit, that was amazing. The Wax Trax sign, the Roxy music table, like all of that history, but I think the most upsetting thing for me and surprising thing was that, like, and their CD collection was still alphabetized, basically like transported from Chicago to Arkansas in the same exact case and still with the alphabetical divider parts. So that was a shaker.
How wonderful that they were pack rats, though, because all this survived.
Correct. Yes.
So Jello, you're the only one here who really was part of the the Denver story. Excuse me. Do you remember the first time you met Jim and Danny, and what your first impression was?
Oh yeah. I mean, as I might have said in the movie, I don't remember. This was Colorado at a time where Denver and Boulder were ground zero test marketing grounds for who was going to be the next Firefall, the next Eagles. Spice it up with some ECM Scientology jazz fusion. But for somebody who was more interested in Black Sabbath and the Stooges, that was hell. At least the records I liked were cheap in the used bins, until I walked into Wax Trax and saw all these British-only things like they show in the movie for prices way higher than I'd ever seen anything before. And I kind of got argumentative, and this is kind of the tail end of the era where having long hair was still rebellious. And here was these two guys with really short hair, smoking weed in the store, offering it to me. I think Jim might have had a sleeveless, cut-off black leather jacket on or something. And, he was very, sharp-tongued in return, who are these people? But I kept going back to the store, and it was a watershed store for me in many, many ways. I mean, they supported punk very, very early on, and may have had the first copies of Pistol's Anarchy in the UK single anywhere in the United States. because of the guy who chose not to appear in the movie, who was a key part of both stores, named Mike Smythe, a British guy who was connected with Rock On Records in London, which was owned by Ted Carroll, and then started the Chiswick and the Ace labels, and Ace is very strong in saying. Anyway, Mike would bring biker soundtracks back to London and then grab all this weird shit that you'd never see in America and bring it back, including early on posters for Eddie and the Hot Rods, who looked really punk at the time, lurid headlines from The Sun and those British tabloids about what the Sex Pistols did that week and whatnot. So we were clued in early. And then he plays this record in the store, which I think was Knee Deep by The Damned, a single. What's that? Oh, just some other British punk band. Like, oh shit, I have to collect 45s now. Wax Trax is to blame. And then I also was the one who was, still like, hippie dude, weed period, really into space rock and krautrock and the weirder, more magma-esque side of prog. And so when that stuff came in, some rare import I'd never seen anywhere else, I would buy those synthesizer records and get so much shit from Jim Nash because I wasn't buying some Bowie EP or something like that. And so then later, and I think you witnessed one of these when we met at the Chinese restaurant, and Jim and very important people and me and you, and the first time I saw Joe, oh my God, a woman who looks just like Jim Nash. How did this happen? Oh, okay. But anyway, whenever Jim was around very important people, maybe you were there too, I don't know, it was in the middle of doing one of the large records, but anyway, and I had to do it to him again. I remember when you gave me non-stop shit for buying music with a synthesizer on it in your store. And now, not only are you making all this money putting out synthesizer records, you're putting out disco synthesizer records. Yeah! And you had long hair down to your ass and you liked Captain Beefheart.
The first time I met you was when I had to get all the guys in Revolt and Cox to autograph records to give away in a radio station, and you were there and you bit them, so your teeth marks.
Was that at the studio?
No, it was at Al's house. So Frankie, you knew Jim and Danny almost the second they got to Chicago. What was that first meeting like, and what was your first impression of them?
Oh. It was one of their famous parties, so they had tons of people I didn't know, music blasting, everybody was smashed, it was completely insane. I woke up that morning in the spare room with the Queen of England poster hung over my bed, and I remember turning around smashed. Still, I was like 22, and I was like, fuck. This is unreal. No one will ever believe this. That they're my parents. Too.
So Paul, I'm going to pass that down to him. I want to ask you the same question. So I've lost count of how many projects and bands you're in on the label, and also a lot of the beautiful score in this movie is Paul as well. Do you remember your first meeting with Jim and Danny and what your impression was?
Hello? I actually don't. I don't remember, honestly.
Good story.
Horrible story.
Probably at the studio where you live.
Any fun early memory that's...
Well, certainly in the store, yeah, of course, sure. Going to their apartment, there's those scenes, all those photographs with Bauhaus when those guys were, visiting. That was in Jim and Danny's apartment. That was kind of behind the store on Altgeld. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was super fun, and those guys were super catty, and it was, a lot. A lot to take in at once. Exactly what David J. was trying to express. It's like all of a sudden you're in this world like, what kind of world am I in?
There's a great section in his book all about Jim and Danny and Wax Trax, so that is pretty fun to read. I'm curious with both you and Frankie. So, as the movie shows us, the staff was at times perhaps not completely competent. And, were you guys ever aware of that, or were you worried about it?
The staff of what? The label staff.
Like the blues stuff, I was still sort of like, the blues, you know. Because I grew up with glam rock and stuff, so, you know, all the older guys were like, the blues, man, you gotta know the blues. And I was like humble pie, which is amazing now, and all that stuff I like totally bow to, because it's very cool. But then it was like, nah, I don't really listen to that kind of stuff. But I like it now.
So, Paul, I have to ask you. There's this asshole in the movie who talks about how the Regal
live records
live
live
album isn't
record.
really live. And I wondered if you had anything you'd like to say about it.
Okay, so maybe you remember Andy was going on about how the live Cox record, you goddamn son of a bitch, was not a live record. I love that story.
There's a footage there of Bill, and he's drumming, and he stops and smokes a cigarette, and the drumming keeps
Probably
going.
reading the book at the same time, yeah.
It's Moby Dick.
Yeah,
Moby Dick.
But there's some
we
difference in
had,
opinion.
no, there was Tim Powell's mobile recording or whatever. So the dude we had everything wired up. We did 2 shows. 48 tracks, so 2 24-track machines. It was out in the alley and whatnot. And then after both shows were recorded, Al and I went and, reviewed everything. And yeah, there were a couple of overdubs and, we mixed it, but it was a fucking live record.
Depends on your definition.
No, I love it.
It was an amazing show.
But at that time, doing overdubs and shit wasn't really that cool. Now it's part of the formula, like, I'll re-sample it. But back then it wasn't like that, All it was another fresh layer on the fucked up layer.
We weren't a fucking jazz band,
And then, Jello, things kind of went full circle for you. So you came back into the Wax Trax world with Wired, even though it wasn't on Wax Trax. Were you and Jim and Danny in touch throughout all the years?
Oh yeah, I mean they were.
Hold on, can I just say that, was it during Lard when you were in this shop and you came in and your shirt was unbuttoned and your chest was shaved and your chest hair was in the shape of a cross? Was that
That might have been on a Dead Kennedys tour. I don't know, or maybe I redid it when we did the first 3 Lard songs live at those Ministry shows in Chicago one year, including a 45-minute version of the really slow song on Power of Lard called Time to Melt. And unfortunately, I couldn't see the audience. It was pitch dark, but there were a lot of people screaming afterwards they wanted another song. After that, I couldn't believe it. There was video footage shot of all that, as well as the other ones I was in H-Gun down where they threw it away or what.
I don't know. Did you get in touch with those guys?
I don't know them. I don't really know them. And then Al said he didn't want to release the stuff that went to multi-track unless he re-recorded all the parts on it. So I don't know how much in
That's
case.
a typical live record.
So I don't know how much of in case he didn't feel like showing up is actually re-recorded and how much is live, because it was the same recordings. But anyway, I forgot the other. Oh yeah. So basically, Jim and Danny and Smythe and Greg Pickett was still around, and so they would make sure that if Al was in the store something that we'd met and say hi and kind of mutual, oh yeah, I like your stuff, oh yeah, cool, great. And then After I Will Refuse came out, I realized that at that heavy side, I knew Al had in him from unreleased Ministry stuff, as well as one song when Arista paired him with Iggy Pop, and it never came out, called Fire Engine, which is one hell of a song. It's not the Wax Trax era Ministry. He re-recorded it on that Cocked and Loaded album with Revolting Cocks, finally. So at least you can get the song that's on some Iggy bootlegs. But anyway, I always knew Al had this other side to him. I was waiting for it to come out and realized that his synthesizer work was really, really well done, too. Oh, God, this is almost as good as my friend Christian Lunch. So then, when I wanted him to try and remix some Christian Lunch stuff that didn't go so well, and then this was after Palehead and Al and I reconnecting at the I-Beam backstage after a Golden Cock show. And so it's finally, okay, this is not going to work. Let's do our own thing. Yeah, that was what I wanted to do in the first place, said Al. What should we call it? The first name that came into my head was Lard. And so Al fell on the floor of his living room laughing, and Lard was born. And before we started recording, Jim, though, took me and said, I hope you're real. And I said, you gotta know, I think Al has kind of gone crazy. Gone crazy? It appears to me like he was like that anyway. As if Jim wasn't at the time.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do for Paul. I've got a question for Paul.
Go for it.
Well, first off, I'm from San Antonio, the home of butthole surfers.
I thought that was San Marcos.
No, San Antonio. They went to Trinity University.
Okay.
How was it recording with Gibby?
Yes.
Well, that
How was it
song.
recording with Gibby?
Yeah.
Totally fucked up and maniac. What do you want? It was super fun and, kind of short-lived. It was just like overnight. Those guys had played the Lollapalooza. I guess they were on the first Lollapalooza and they played in Chicago. And then they came into the studio afterwards. It was an overnighter. And we didn't know he fucking came in, did his Gibby gibberish stuff. And then he's like, what the fuck are we going to do with this? Anyway, so we managed to form it into some lyrics and quotes.
Anybody else?
I have a question for Julia, actually. What's going to happen with the 2011 retrospectacle footage? Is that ever going to see the light of day? Is it stuck with legal issues?
Oh my God, we never get asked that question. God, what's the real answer for that? I mean, truly, the footage is beautiful. There were some real audio issues with it, and so.
Paul can fix it.
Right. So we could make it not that live. I don't know. You never know. I mean, we have so much stuff. We can keep releasing stuff every year.
Are you ever going to have a Wax Trax festival with all bands that are still playing around?
That was the retrospectacle in 2011.
Well, there's Cold Waves, which isn't officially Wax Trax, but a lot of the bands show up in Cold Waves. Yeah.
I heard there was going to be new lard this year. Is that correct?
Al announces a new lard every few years. We have yet to record a note. Al is a field of dreams guy, a field of hallucinogen nightmares. Claim it exists in the media and it will come. Although his repeated claim that there was going to be a tilt-a-whirl on stage at Ministry of Revco shows that one, or at least in his backyard, in the roach-infested place in Texas. That never happened.
I would like to follow up and say, Julia, my Palehead offer still stands. If you remember.
I'm sorry, we were checking the time. What was that?
My Palehead offer still stands.
Thank you.
My bladder is the size of a pea.
Hey, Dave, where are you? I can't see. How much time do you have? We're good? Meaning cut it off or keep going? I cut it off and Frankie's got to pee.
Give it up to Trax.
Go to the bathroom. So I just want to tell you guys that you're here tonight because of Vans. I mean, because of us, of course. But Vans made it possible for us to kind of cross that finish line, get this out commercially to where we can show it here, not just at a film festival. And they have really helped put this out there for everyone. And you can bitch all you want about a major company and like, what's the situation? Why are they even matched up? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Vans is truly like Wax Trax. Their ethos is the same. They are pushing art, culture, music forward. They are there for the underdog.
And comfortable.
And they're comfortable? Not if you put on some skate highs. It takes you like 20 minutes to get those babies on. But the slip-ons are where it's at. And support your local bands, folks, because they're truly some badass people. They are amazing.